Okay, welcome everybody to session for Accounts Masterclass. My name is Alison Ledger and I'm, of course, the training coordinator at Attaché Software. Welcome to everybody in the room here at the Technology Park in Sydney, and for all of you watching online, we welcome you whether you're in New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Perth, or wherever you may be watching us from. What I'm going to do during this session is take you through some tips and tricks to hopefully help you manage your customers, suppliers, and your general ledger a little bit easier. So we'll look at things like reposting GL batches when they end up in the wrong period, reversing customer and supplier payments, reallocating payments and credit notes, writing off bad debts, working close by the support team in our office. I hear them taking calls all the time about people trying to fix their mistakes, and what we're trying to do is, if we can get you to fix those mistakes the right way, then your data will look a lot better than what some of the data does look like, let me tell you. Alrighty, so the first thing that we're going to look at is general ledger batches and when they end up in the wrong period. So if I have a look here at this journal, batch number 109, you'll see there customers September, so I posted a batch of customer transactions for the month of September, but it's ended up in period 4. Okay, so it's ended up in the wrong period. So how do I fix that up? What I see is some people go in and delete every line out of that batch and re-enter it into October. Yes, you can do that, but some of your batches might be 100 lines long. So what I need to do, if that is incorrect, all I need to do is go to transactions, and I can use this function here to repost batches. So the first thing I need to do is to reverse it out of the wrong period. So I choose, it originally went into period 4, so I will reverse that out. I select my batch number, 109. No, I want to change the description because I want to say reverse, wrong period. And I choose the option to post in reverse, and I can put the date. So when you are reversing, it's probably a good idea to enter the date, the same date, and I think I did these yesterday. Can't really remember, to tell you the truth. So what will happen is, you'll see here, these are my existing batches, batches 1 to 109. What will happen is that the software will take a copy of batch 109, it will then reverse it, and it will create batch number 110, okay? So there I have it. So if I look now, what I have is batch 109, customers in September, going into period 4, batch 110 coming out of period 4. So now what I need to do is to repost batch 109 into period 3 for September. So again, I choose my period number of 3, I choose my batch number of 109. This time I want to say that it is customers for September. I don't want to post this batch in reverse. What I want to do is put batch 109 into September. So what will happen now is the software will take a copy of batch 109, post it into period 3, creating batch number 11. So now what I have is a full audit trail. I have the original batch of 109 going into period 4, which is the wrong period. I have batch number 10, and it's coming out of period 4. And here I have posted it back into period 3. Okay, so that's how you can manage batches that have gone into the wrong periods, and that gives you a full audit trail. But to stop people posting to wrong periods, remember that you can set up, when you go to your general ledger options, you can lock your periods as well. So if you have finished all the financials for the month of September and you don't want any more transactions going back into September or July, August, you can lock those periods. And that means that people won't accidentally post into the wrong period. You can even lock the future dated ones. So if you only want people to work in October and post into the October period, you only leave October unlocked. Okay? The other thing that you can do as well, if you turn the auto period on as well, as soon as your system date ticks over to the new month, the software will automatically roll forward into the new period. And what it will also do as well, when you have the auto period set on, is when you are posting to the general ledger for period 4, if I was going to do something like suppliers, when I click on the date range, it will automatically default to the period number date range. Okay, so if you only want October transactions to go into period 4, you just set in your general ledger options, auto period, and the date here will always reflect the period number. Okay, so that's how you can, a couple of safeguards by locking your general ledger periods and only putting the relevant data transactions into the relevant period. Okay. Alrighty. Let's talk reversing customer and supplier payments. Okay, so of course, sometimes when you are, we'll start with suppliers. So for any reason that you need to, if I was doing my pay selections, so if I print my pay selections, you'll see that I have these 2 suppliers that are waiting to be paid, Delta and Elcom. So what I can do is I can process those payments. So I'll just select those people to be paid, Delta and Elcom. Okay, so just to make sure that I've got the right people, so they're the 2 people that are going to be paid. Now when I create my bank deposit file, now you'll see what I've done there is I've also ticked the box to consolidate bank GL transactions. So this relates to what gets posted through to your GL and what appears in your bank rec. So when you create the bank files that pay your suppliers, those files can contain 50 lines for 50 different suppliers, which might come to a total of $50,000. Now when that gets posted through to your GL and into your bank rec, do you want to see 50 lines for every supplier in your bank rec, or do you want to see one withdrawal on the 18th of October for $50,000? That's why if you want to see one transaction of $50,000 in your bank rec, if you tick that box, that's what will flow through to your GL and what will flow through to your bank rec. So tick the box, consolidate bank GL transactions, and then you won't have the 50 lines. Okay, so that's created that transaction for Delta. Elcom is paid by credit card, I think. So I'll just pay that as well. Okay, so I've paid that transaction for Elcom and I've paid Delta as well. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that I really didn't want to pay that Elcom transaction and it was done by mistake. So how do I reverse that $3,000 out and reinstate that invoice? So to reinstate or to reverse supplier payments, you go to manual payments and you enter manual payments. You put in the supplier, you put in the negative amount of $3,000 in my case. I choose and accept that. Now, I can't remember which invoice it was. So when you come in here, you will see a list of all the paid invoices. You will then allocate the $3,000 to the relevant invoice. I hope that's the one. Can't really remember. And I accept that. And now if I look at my master files, you'll see there that there it is. The original invoice, the payment. I did two payments. And there's the payment, and there's the reversal, and now my invoice is outstanding for $3,000. Okay, so you can do your pay selections, but if you need to reverse a payment, you use manual payments, you put in the negative amount, and you allocate it back to the original invoice. Now the same thing will apply on the customer side of things. So when you are doing payments for your customers, choose my friend Mr. Abel, I choose 341, and 341. Now you'll see that I have all of these invoices. Sometimes when you get payments from your customers, of course, they don't send you a remittance advice and you don't know which one to allocate to, so you just take your best guess or your and allocate it to this one, 3410. So I can allocate that. Now if that has gone to the wrong invoice, I can go in just got myself confused. If that check had bounced or that EFT didn't go through, of course I can go back in here and again enter the negative amount of $341. It's $341. Now the thing is, when you come into this screen to reallocate that amount, what you see is only the invoices that are outstanding. But what I want to see are the zero valued invoices because they are fully paid. So this is what this obscure button down here where it says zero no. When I click on that, you'll see there that it shows the fully paid invoices. And I can come down here and I can put in negative 341 against the original invoice and I can accept that. And now when I look at Mr. Abel, you'll see 54. There you have it. The original invoice, the original payment, the reversal, and now the invoice is outstanding. Okay? So if you put a transaction in, you reverse it out quite simply like that by doing negative payments. But when you are doing customer payments, sometimes the money has gone through and all you have done is allocated it to the wrong invoice. As I said, your customers pay you, but sometimes they don't send you remittance advices. You allocate, send them a statement, and they go, oh no, I don't want the money allocated to that invoice, I want it allocated to this one. So if you do allocate payments to the wrong invoices, you don't have to reverse the payment. You can use adjustments. Okay, so if I do another payment for my friend Mr. Abel for $341, get the right invoice number, 341. Okay, so I've allocated that to invoice number 5066. If that was supposed to be allocated to invoice number 5067, all I need to do is I can move that payment from one invoice to another by doing an adjustment. So again, I put in my friend Mr. Abel. That's the number. Now the adjustment amount will be 0 because all I'm doing is moving one figure to another. So reallocate. Okay, so all I need to do is do my invoices and get them around the right one. So I paid. So again, I'm displaying my 0 valued invoices. So I put in -341 and I put in 341 allocated to this one, 341. Okay, so you'll see what I've done is I've done a negative amount against 5066 and I've done a positive amount against 5067. So all I am doing is moving the money from one invoice to another. And you'll see, oh, I did it the wrong way. That's what Michael was saying. So as you can see, I made a mistake. Because when I did the reallocation, I did the negative and the positive back the front. So you just need to make sure that you get your negatives and your positives back the front. But in all the notes that you get, it tells you which way to put the negative and the positive. So then I would have to go back into adjustments and do that again. Okay. Now adjustments, you saw there that I did use adjustments to do that. Remember, adjustments are only, they can be used to move money around. And you saw I used it when I allocated to the wrong invoice. But when you are doing customer payments, one of the little tricks that you can do is, yes, I can put in a customer code Abel, and he sent me $341. He might have sent me a cheque for $341 and it had invoice number on the back, or I might get a cheque from a customer, invoice number 341, and the cheque says trading as, and you've got no idea who that customer is. Or someone might deposit money into your bank account of $341 and you think to yourself, I've got no idea who this is, and all they've done is given you the invoice number. So when you're doing customer payments, so instead of typing in the customer code, if you have the invoice number, you can type in the invoice number. So I type in invoice number 5069, and you'll see that I have an F4 find invoice button. And what that does, it converts the invoice number to the customer code. Okay, so then I can go in and I can find invoice number 5069 and enter my 341. Okay. So again, that's for those in the room or who are watching online. That is not a BI thing. That F4 key has been in the software forever.
And these are things that are available in the big. These are things that are there to reduce that whirlwind. Okay? So that's why the big's so important.
That was Mary Ann speaking for those online. Okay, alrighty. So the other thing I wanted to talk about as well, when I look at a lot of people's data as well, if you printed either your customer aging reports or your supplier aging reports, do you have transactions sitting in unallocated? So it's time to tidy up your data. So if you do have transactions, credit notes sitting in unallocated, you need to go to post. I'll do this on suppliers. So you need to go to post unallocated, and you will have a list of all the transactions here, and then you just need to allocate those transactions to the relevant invoices. So any payments that you've got unallocated, any credit notes, you will find them all on your unallocated column on your aging reports. Because remember, if you want to tidy up your data and you want to delete inactive suppliers or inactive customers, all your transactions must be allocated before you can go through and remove those master files. Okay. All right. Okay. The next thing I'm going to talk about is how to also tidy up your transactions. If you printed, for example, a customer aging report, and you have all those little hangover amounts of 2 cents, 21 cents, all on your aging report, how do you handle those? And also, how do you handle bad debts? Okay, so this is the way that I would handle bad debts and also tidying up all those little things. The first thing that I do is I set up a general ledger set to write off bad debts. Here in my sales account, from my chart of accounts, this is where I put my expense account for bad debts, or you might have a provision for bad debts in your balance sheet. So depending on how you run your bad debts in your organisation. So what I would do is I would set up a general ledger set for bad debts. What I also then do is I set up a service code for bad debts. Now these service codes, why we have them in the software is so you can set up all the predefined things such as bad debts, and you attach the relevant general ledger set to it. And if things are predefined, set up with the right general ledger set attached to it, then your operators don't have to make choices about GL codes when they use sundry lines. We would prefer if everyone didn't use a sundry line at all. We would prefer that with your customers, you set up products that you sell, or you set up services that you sell, and it's the same with what you purchase. Or everything that you purchase, phone bills and utilities and things like that, would all be set up as a service code, because then your operators don't have to make choices about GL codes. So now when it comes to writing off bad debts, then if this bad debt, I've set up a service code for that. If this is a large debt and it needs to affect your BAS because you've collected GST on this invoice when you write it off, you will need to put it through as a credit adjustment note. So if you are writing anything off that has to affect your BAS, you need to put it through as a credit adjustment note. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so when I choose my service line and I put in my bad debts, then I can put in a credit adjustment note of $900. And that will then, the transactions, the debits and the credits will happen for my bad debts. I can allocate it to the relevant invoice, which one? I'll just allocate it to this one. So I've written off $900 of that, and I accept that. So now when I look at my GL postings for customers on the 18th, you'll see that it's gone to the bad debts. And that is because I set up a GL set with my bad debts account in it, and I set up a service code with that GL set attached to it, and then I just use that service code for writing off my bad debts. Okay? So that's how you can handle those. If you just want to tidy up your data and get rid of all those little 2 cents and all those types of things, you can just use adjustments. Remember, if you use adjustments, nothing flows through to your BAS. If a transaction that you're putting into the software has to affect your BAS transactions, you must either do an invoice or a credit adjustment note. Anything that you do through here does not affect your BAS. So if I looked at my customer Pepper, you'll see that I've got 31 cents and I've got 2 cents. And all I want to do is just tidy those transactions up. So all I need to do is enter an adjustment, and it is 33 cents. And hopefully I get this around the right way. And I can just send it to my bad debts account. And then here, all I need to do is put in my negative 31 and my negative 02 cents. So if it's not negative 02. And you'll see my balance is 0. So they round the right way this time? Okay, so now when I go back and have a look at my customer Pepper, you'll see that their balance is 0. Okay? So if you print your customer and your supplier aging reports and tidy up your data, look at your unallocated column and go to post unallocated to allocate all your payments and credit notes, and then you can use adjustments to go through and tidy up your data for that type of thing, to fix up all these little amounts that are there. Okay. So all that I've just done is write through Attaché BI, and of course in any version of Attaché that you have been using. Just a couple of little things that I'm going to do now are only in Attaché BI. So for those of you in the room and also those of you listening online, these next couple of things that I'm about to talk about are only available in Attaché BI. The first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is supplier recurring transactions. So you think about it, for all of you in the room who do accounts payable, how many times have you typed that phone bill? How many times have you entered that attaché bill that comes every month? is there a way that you can automate all that for you? So what you can do is set up what we call recurring transactions. And again, as I mentioned, with the supplier transactions as well, some of the bills that you get, your phone bills, you might be renting office space, that you also want to split that across multiple cost centres. So what I can do is when I set up a service code, I have set one up here for rent, and you'll see there that the rent will be split across 3 different cost centres. So 25% of the rent bill will go to admin cost centre, 25% will go to marketing, and 50% will go to sales. Okay? So if I set up a service code, so again, if you, all of your bills, all your utility bills can be split across multiple cost centres or even across multiple GL codes if need be. So if I set that up to do that, because that rent is a recurring bill and the money gets automatically deducted from the company bank account every month, I can set that up as a recurring transaction and not have to do any entries at all. So to do that, the first thing that you need to do is to set up what we call a standing order for the relevant supplier, and I'll just call that template. And I put rent, and let's say it's $10,000 each month. Okay, so once I've set up the template for the recurring transaction, what I need to do is to tell the software how often I want this to happen, to recur. So again, I put in my supplier, I put in a reference rent, monthly rent, choose my template, and here, this is when you tell the software when is it to happen. Monthly date on the 25th of every month, monthly day based, and so on. Okay, but I'm just going to leave mine as on demand so I can generate it. You can also put start and stop days. So if you've got a lease on a office building until the 31st of December next year, you could put the date in there and it would automatically stop when you got to the 31st of December. Or you can put the total maximum to pay. So if you're paying something off and it was $5,222, it would automatically stop when it got to that amount. Okay, so if you're paying off loans or something like that. The other thing that you can do as well, there'll be different types of things. So because this invoice, when it gets generated, and it's like the attaché bill, we take the money directly from your bank account. So when you set up these recurring transactions, as soon as I generate the invoice, it can be fully paid as well. And now because this rent is coming out of my bank account, I'm going to fully pay it when I generate it. But you can generate, set up recurring invoices and just generate them and change dollar values and just do a normal payment run. Okay, so you don't have to fully pay them. So you take your phone bills, it's not the same amount every month. It's different. So you would still create a recurring transaction, but you have to manually change the dollar values, and then you could do a normal payment run. So if I go here to invoices, then I can generate that. So I will just generate it for that one supplier. So when I generate that, so you see there, Now, what I can also do here, the software will automatically generate an invoice number. Now, because it's coming out of my bank statement, it's just an automatic thing, I don't mind if the software generates an invoice number, because I don't get an invoice every month for the rent, it just happens. But if this was your telephone bill or your electricity bill and you did want to change the invoice number, you can by choosing header, and you can type in invoice number 987. So you can change the invoice number if you really wanted to. So once I select that and I choose accept, that's generated one invoice and it has fully paid it. So if I go and type the right number, and there you have it. So $1,000, and it's fully paid, so the amount remaining is $0 as well. So without me having to type it. So that's what you can do, exactly that with the attaché bill. To generate it, we send you the invoice on the 1st, then we take the money on about the 20th of the month. So you can set it up to happen on the 20th of each month. Now, as you saw there, the dispersal there, when I set that rent up, I set it up to disperse over different cost centres. So if I just print this for the 18th. So these are my GL postings. And so there you'll see that that money for the rent is now split across those 3 cost centres based on the percentages that I set up as a service code. Okay. And you'll see there I've done the same thing with my phone. I did that one the other day. So it splits across there for my phone. Okay. Now, if I post all this to the general ledger, suppliers. Now, the difference is in BI, those cost centres, of course, now flow through to our general ledger. So for some of you out there who've been using cost centres, that you would have had an expense account for each cost centre that you had. So now that you can have one expense account for rent, one expense account for travel, and you just have multiple cost centres, which means that the new report, that the reports that we have, not only can you do your normal trial balances and P&Ls and things like that, but you can also do them based on cost centres. So if I go here and I print the report from admin to sales I'm just going to do my expense accounts, you'll see there that there I have this report. If I just move this across, maybe it's going to let me. So there I have office cleaning. So these are all the figures for the month of March. I have depreciation coming from my fixed assets, which is split across all the cost centres. And there's the rent that I just posted through the period for October and the different splits. So if you are using cost centres, now they all flow through directly into the general ledger. And so you can tidy up your general ledger chart of accounts, but it is a conversation that you will have with your attaché consultants to get some advice about how you structure your chart of accounts, and of course the moving of the old way to the new way if you want to do cost centre reporting. So that is a discussion to have with your attaché consultants. Okay, so those new cost centre reports, the supplier recurring transactions, are only available in Attaché BI. For those of you on the customer side of things, you can also do exactly the same thing, set up standing orders for customers and recreate recurring invoices. So you take us at Attaché, of course, we send you an invoice every month. We have those set up as standing orders. We generate those as a recurring invoice. And of course, if you're lucky, that you can even create a direct debit file and send to your bank and debit all your customers and take the money, rather than sitting back and waiting for them to pay you. So all the same recurring information on the supplier side of things is available on the customer side of things, and there are notes that can take you through both setting up customer and supplier recurring transactions. You got any questions there, Marianne? No. So, is there any questions? Yep.
Can you set up like prepayment invoices, like for GST purposes, like we do? You know, if the period, for example, from a certain period and then, say...
For customers or suppliers? So I'm just taking the question.
Suppliers.
Yeah, so you want to...
for example, the period for 1 year, right?
Yep.
It's cover over the June, so August or something.
Yep.
And so we now, at the moment, we're doing like sort of manually.
So is it the same amount each month?
Yeah, to enter prepayment, so you can have a report, you know.
Yes, so...
Once set up properly, you know.
So if so the question is about prepayments. So the way that I will handle that is, so if the total amount that you had to pay was $10,000 and you're paying that up front and you want to generate an invoice each month.
See, if it goes over the financial period,
Yep.
If it, for example, subscription, right?
Yep.
So if it covers up to, say, August, which is July, August, 2 months, prepayment kind of thing, you know, like for GST purposes, we need
Yep.
to reflect it somehow.
Oh, okay.
Because we do it quarterly, prepayment sort of quarterly preparation.
Alrighty. So you would be able to set up start and stop dates here on the recurring invoice, and it would generate each month for you with the relevant date. But I'll have a think about that, and I can do it, but I'll have to step it out for you. Okay. And that will be, as I mentioned, the question was about prepayments and then generating throughout the year. But I will create a step-by-step with that and have it available to everybody. Okay. And just the last little thing, just to have a look at. I never know which one to do it in, so I'll do it in accounts, in GL. Alrighty, so this is also available in BI as well in versions 1.17. The only thing is slightly different in BI that we've made a couple of changes to, and that is the print list wizard. So on any master file in accounts or payroll for that matter, you can go F2 to bring up a list of either your customers, suppliers, products, or GL chart. And then I can go output F11, and it brings up this print list wizard. Now, as I mentioned, it is available in Attaché accounts. It is slightly different in Attaché BI, and it has a couple of new features. So that was the default. So it's got the code, the description. I don't want the report group, so I just move that up there. If I want to add columns, I can search for what I want. So if I wanted period 1, period 2, Period 3 will do. Okay. The other thing that I can save that now, so if you're not using BI, you can't save these screens. So I can save that, which means that every time I come back in and I do that, it will now save automatically. So when I hit the print button, of course it will open it up. And as you can see, the reports, the cost centre report that I just printed and this report that I've just printed is in the new report format in Attaché BI. So we are making changes to the way that we produce our reports. You still have the same options, whether you want to send it to PDF or Excel and so on. So, or you can email as directly from here as well. So there has been some changes to the print list wizard in Attaché BI, meaning that you can search for columns, you can save it, and so on. Alrighty, I've been wound up. So that is our Accounts Masterclass. I hope it's been helpful to you. As I mentioned, all the notes will be available once you complete the survey. I thank you all very much for listening in, and we will move on to fixed assets.